Never sleep near windows. That was the first rule my mom texted when everything started. It looked ridiculous at the time. A message lost between group chats about toilet paper and rumors of riots in towns like ours. But the rule got stuck in my head, louder than sirens, until it felt like the only thing keeping me alive. I'm Kyle. 24, still living in my childhood home because rent in this city is a joke, and my mom moved to Florida last year for her retirement piece. I work IT remote, mostly resetting passwords for people who call Google Chrome the internet. My best friend, Nick, moved in after his divorce, which made us both feel less pathetic. Our routines were embarrassingly normal: cereal for dinner, Twitch streams in the background, and a whiteboard tallying who had to take out the trash. The last night before everything changed, we were arguing about who'd left milk out on the counter. That's the kind of stupid stuff you miss when the world falls apart. Martial law. Monday started like a drill no one explained. Early morning, every exit out of the city clogged with Humvees and guys in uniforms. The news played the same "for your safety" loop, but we could see through the blinds. The city wasn't safe, it was suffocating. Some idiot on Nextdoor claimed there was an incident at the old hospital, but no one had details. All we got was a curfew and the rules. Don't go outside after dark, don't answer knocks you aren't expecting, don't sleep near windows. We made jokes about it, but the laughter sounded fake. It felt like we'd all been grounded for reasons they wouldn't tell us. By noon, our phones started acting weird. Nick's screen glitched and my mom's number disappeared from my favorites. Service died in chunks. 1 minute I was scrolling memes, the next everything froze. When I went to open my window for air, a black drone buzzed so close I thought it'd smash the glass. I ducked back and watched it drift along the block, red lights blinking like it was searching for someone. That's when the first neighbor went missing. Mr. Sims from across the street, the guy who always yelled about parking, just gone. His wife kept standing on their porch, phone in hand, waiting for a call that never came. At night, you'd hear her crying through the walls. On the third day, I saw something I can't erase. There was this guy, maybe 40, walking down the empty street like nothing was wrong. No mask, no fear, just waving at windows. He stopped, screamed so loud I dropped my mug. A pair of soldiers appeared, faces hidden behind plastic shields, and yanked him to the ground. He fought like an animal, but they dragged him toward a van, slammed the door, and that was it. Nobody helped. Nobody even yelled. People closed their blinds tighter and pretended they hadn't seen. I did too. Nick and I stopped watching the news after that. The anchors smiled too much. The drones got louder at night. When Nick suggested we cover all the windows with blankets, I called him paranoid, but we did it anyway. We unplugged our smart TV, smashed the tiny camera above the fridge, and pushed the couch up against the sliding glass door. My hands shook the whole time, but Nick made it seem like a game. He drew a smiley face on the duct tape. For morale, he said. Maybe he was right. You have to laugh, or you lose your mind. It was Nick who started teaching me to fight. He'd boxed in college, and every evening we'd spar in the garage with old gloves and no mouth guards. My punches were weak at first, but I got better. I wanted to believe we were just being careful, that we'd laugh about it later. But when you start living by rules that don't make sense, like never sleeping near windows, it's because you're hoping the people who made them know something you don't, and deep down, you know they probably don't. Nick was the first to notice the patterns at night. We started sleeping in shifts, on the floor as far from the windows as we could get, but even the smallest noise would snap us awake. At midnight, every night, we'd hear things moving outside, soft scraping, the rattle of gravel, the occasional metallic thump. Once I heard something that sounded almost human, a low humming, the kind of tune you'd sing to calm yourself in the dark. Nick said it was probably some animal. I didn't argue, but deep down, I knew he was wrong. Nothing on four legs stands up and taps at your window with fingers. The first break-in was 2 houses down. We heard it from the bathroom, someone screaming, then nothing. We killed the lights and pressed our backs to the tiles, waiting for footsteps. They never came. The next morning, there was a cop car parked out front, doors wide open, nobody inside. Nick wanted to go check, but I stopped him. The windows were all shattered. The air felt heavier. There were scratch marks running down the front door, deep and raw, like someone had tried to claw their way in or out. Every night after that, someone on our block vanished. Sometimes we'd hear it, a sudden scream or a dull thud, the sound of something being dragged. Other times it was just quiet, and you'd notice a car parked a little too neatly, a porch light left burning for nobody. We tried calling out to neighbors through the walls, texting burner phones, even writing notes and sliding them under doors, but no one answered anymore. The only time we saw anyone, it was that same military van, rolling by slow tinted windows hiding whatever was inside. By the end of the week, Nick said we had to leave. If we wait, we'll end up like the rest, he said. We packed what we could carry, cans, water, the bat from my high school days. The morning we left, we found the city even emptier, trash swirling in the wind, drones still circling overhead. We headed for the subway, figuring it'd be safer underground. We moved fast, ducking behind cars and avoiding main roads, but I kept checking every window, every shadow. Sometimes I saw faces, just flashes, staring out at us, wide-eyed and unblinking. Getting into the subway wasn't hard. The gates were busted, graffiti everywhere, turnstiles frozen mid-spin. We moved down the steps, flashlight beams jumping across old tracks and candy wrappers. It was damp and something smelled rotten, but it was better than above ground. At least, we thought it was. Because the deeper we went, the more we realized we weren't alone. We heard voices echoing in the dark, at first just murmurs, but soon real words. People or things trying to sound like people. Some whispered my name. Nick swore he saw someone in a hospital gown duck behind a pillar. I kept the bat ready, telling myself I could swing if I had to, but my arms felt weak. I saw shapes skittering past, and every so often the humming would come back. Now, from right behind us. I stopped looking back. It was better not to know. Somewhere along the way, Nick stopped responding when I called his name. His eyes got glassy, and when I asked if he was okay, he just grinned. "We're almost safe, Kyle," he said. "Just keep walking." But his voice sounded wrong, like someone else was moving his mouth. When we finally found an old maintenance door and slipped inside, I tried to catch my breath. That's when I heard a familiar laugh, a laugh I'd known my whole life. I turned and saw my sister Mia sitting in the shadows, knees pulled to her chest. She looked just like the last time I saw her, except for her eyes. They were wrong, wide, too shiny, and fixed on me like she was starving. She said, "I'm glad you finally found me." But I remembered with a gut punch that Mia died 2 years ago. I was the one who found her. So why was she here, smiling in the dark, like she'd never left at all? Mia's voice echoed in the dark, as sharp as it ever was when we were kids fighting over the TV remote. "It's okay now, Kyle. You can rest." She reached out her hand, but I just stared, frozen. Nick stood behind me, still grinning, his smile stretched too wide. I kept thinking if I blinked, they'd vanish, and this would all snap back to reality, just a nightmare cooked up by canned food and sleepless nights. But they didn't disappear. The air around me felt thick and wrong, as if it was pressing in from every side. Mia's laughter turned into a low humming, the same tune I'd heard outside my window. I tried to step back, but the door was gone, just bricks behind me where it should have been. My phone, long dead, pressed like a stone in my pocket. I called Nick's name again, softer this time, hoping he'd break character, but he kept smiling. "You're not listening, Kyle," he said, his voice a little too calm. You have to let them in. That's how it stops. That's when the voices came, hundreds of them, crawling out of the cracks in the walls. They sounded like family, friends, even strangers I'd only passed in the hallway back when things were normal. All of them begging me to open up, to drop the rules, to sleep near the windows again. For a second I wanted to. I just wanted the noise to stop. But deep down, a part of me, the stubborn, angry part, knew it was a trick. I gripped the bat so hard my knuckles ached and screamed as loud as I could, drowning out the voices. The humming faded. The shadows pulled back. I don't know how I got out of the tunnels. When I finally stumbled into daylight, my throat was raw and my clothes stank of old water. The city was still burning. Smoke climbed the sky and the streets were alive with chaos. Sirens, gunshots, the wild roar of a crowd that had snapped. I staggered up the block, barely able to walk, but something in me had changed. I wasn't scared anymore. I was furious. That night, people started fighting back. Fire lit up the checkpoints, and I watched as groups of survivors pulled down drones with baseball bats and garden tools. Someone took over the radio tower and blasted a single message on every frequency. They aren't what they say. Don't sleep near windows. It felt like a pulse, a signal that shook everyone awake. For the first time in weeks, people looked at each other, really looked, and realized they weren't alone. The cost was brutal. I saw kids separated from parents, friends hauled off by soldiers, old neighbors bleeding out on the pavement. The city was being erased, one block at a time. When we finally got the truth out, when someone managed to stream video of what was happening in the tunnels, of the things with wrong faces and too wide grins, the signal didn't last. Gunfire cut the feed. Static filled the airwaves. But for a moment, the world saw us. Someone out there knew. Maybe that was enough. By dawn, half the city was blacked out. The skyline glowed with fires. I watched it all from a rooftop, surrounded by strangers who looked as beaten up as I felt. We didn't say much. There was nothing left to say. Some of us, like me, were missing people who shouldn't be missing. Others had stories too wild to share. But as the sun dragged itself up over the ruined blocks, I realized we were still here, still breathing, hardened, unified, scarred. And for the first time, I understood why the rules never made sense. Because the people making them were just as scared as we were. The difference was now, it was our turn to lead. And whatever monsters were left, they'd have to come through us to get what they wanted next. Don't miss the next story. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're first to hear the next emergency warning.